Hello everyone and welcome to another girl chat. The sun is just doing me so right now, but it'll probably change throughout the video, but welcome. Today we're going to be talking about mental health, which I have a lot to say. Before I even get started, I like to do girl chats once a month where I talk about a lot of different things. They're not always exclusive to girls, but I like to talk to my girl audiences. So I have a whole playlist if you want to see all the other girl chats I have made in the past, but today this one's about mental health. And I just wanted to talk about a few disclaimers before I get started, just because I feel like I'm not trying to get sued. I'm not a professional, never was. And so if you need help with mental health issues, or if you're talking to somebody about mental health, do not cite me, do not quote me. I'm not an expert. This is just my opinion on things. I also wanted to say that there's no one size fits all approach to mental health. I'm going to be talking very generally, and if it fits for you, great. If it doesn't, that's fine. This is just a very general conversation about mental health. And then also take whatever I say with a grain of salt. I'm going to be spitting facts, but they're not scientifically correct facts, okay? So just take it with a grain of salt. Let's go ahead and talk about mental health. So I have a love-hate relationship with mental health, just because I feel like it's something that a lot of times people will say almost kind of like it's a buzzword, and sometimes I don't feel like it's very genuine in talks I've seen in the past. Not all of them, but some of them are very genuine, but sometimes I just get a little bit of like, do you really care, or are you just trying to say it because you know it's something that people like to hear? So it's kind of hesitant to make this topic, just because I don't want to just reiterate the same thing everyone always says, like take care of your mental health and all that stuff. Like I kind of wanted to take a little bit of a different approach to it, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But yeah, sometimes I just feel like people, maybe they come from a good place, but like I feel like a disconnect sometimes when I hear people talk about mental health. So we're just gonna go ahead and start. But first I wanted to read the definition of mental health. So this is from mentalhealth.gov. The CDC also has something very similar, so I'm gonna link both of these in the description box. But what is mental health? Mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. And also here it talks about different factors that can contribute to mental health problems, like biological factors like genes and brain chemistry, life experiences such as trauma or abuse, and also family history of mental health problems. For me, whenever I think about mental health, I kind of think of it with a past versus present versus future approach. And like that helps me understand how I'm gonna like handling my mental health. So for example, like past situations affecting the present, I might not handle it the same way as maybe a present situation affecting the present, because one happened in the past and I'm working through that, versus if I'm currently going through something, it may not be the same approach. Same thing with like past situations may no longer affect the present, but that doesn't mean it will tomorrow or next year or something. So for me, in that way, I think of it more as like management or maintenance of my mental health, knowing my past triggers or things that have affected me in the past and how I can navigate that so I don't go back into a bad place that I may have been in a different time of my life. Then there's also like present or past situations that can affect the future. And so in that way, I kind of think of it as more prevention. So how do I not let things I'm going through now or the things I've been through in the past not trickle into my future? And so all these different ways, I feel like they can all have a different way of handling. No, girl. They can all have a different way of handling how I approach the situation in helping my overall mental health. So I wanted to share two things that have helped me with managing my mental health or just making my overall mental health better. And with all these ways that I showed with the past, present, and future, I feel like they can all be handled with therapy. Don't get it twisted. I didn't say it's going to be cured by therapy, but therapy can definitely help. Like therapy can help unpack the past and the present so you can have a better understanding of what had happened or what is currently happening with you. And it can also help you get into a better future situation. So like personally for me, it's helped me with coping mechanisms for like panic attacks, which is something I experienced a lot in 2020. I'm a lot better now, but like back then it was crazy, and it didn't matter who told me that I wasn't dying. When I'm going through a panic attack back then, I was 1000% convinced I was dying in that moment, which is a terrible feeling. But therapy helped me so much realize that, girl, what you're feeling is real. Because a lot of times people will be like, it's just all in your head, it's not real. Or at least for me, my panic attacks happened from suppressing traumatic experiences and things that happen, and then you can't suppress things for so long or they're gonna like manifest. And for me, they manifested in panic attacks. And if someone were to tell me it's not real, I would get so mad because it is real. I'm literally having real physical reactions. My heart rate's going up, I'm sweating, I'm this close to passing out. Like, it's real, but it's just, you're not dying. And so my therapist had a nice way of validating me and like giving me ways of coping. It didn't cure my panic attacks, I still have them every so often, but like I'm so much better at managing it. And also with therapy, like the past things that did happen in my life, I almost felt like, oh, this is normal, but she was kind of like, no girl, that isn't normal, and it's not okay for this to happen. And like, even though like I might have had people telling me the opposite. And so I highly recommend therapy. It's really nice, but I'm also aware that not everyone has access to therapy, which brings me into my second thing that really helped me with my overall mental health, and that is boundaries. Boundaries can look a lot of different ways. They can be not giving people access to information that you don't feel comfortable saying, not hanging around people you really don't want to, and it's just all about not people pleasing at the end of the day. It might be hard, especially like if you come from a culture similar to me. Like, I was raised by Nigerian parents, and sometimes, at least for me, boundaries was kind of like a radical thing. Like, what do you mean you don't want to do something, so you're just not gonna do it? Like, that's not how this works. We don't do that. But it's helped me so much because no one's entitled to have access to you in every single way. What you do, what you say. Like, sometimes you're not comfortable and you want to be private, and it's okay to just put up a boundary, and like, you don't even have to say, I'm putting up a boundary, so I'm not going to answer that. You could just be like, I don't feel like saying that right now. And so I highly recommend watching my boundaries video I made a couple months ago. It's a little cringe because I just started YouTube, but you know what? I still was spitting facts in that video. So I recommend watching that if you haven't already. If you feel like you're doing things and putting other people above yourself, highly recommend setting up boundaries, because when you do, you just feel more at ease and at peace. Like, I used to get so stressed out, feeling like I had to do certain things to please other people when I just really didn't want to. And so boundaries, chef's kiss. Okay, so now I kind of wanted to talk about what mental health isn't. And this is probably where my hot takes are gonna come from, and my unpopular opinions might shine through. And like I said, I'm not an expert, so if you disagree, that's fine. We can have a conversation in the description box, in the comments below. But this is where I feel like, when I was telling you earlier about the disconnect that I felt from other people talking about mental health, really stemmed from. So a few things. I feel like mental health is an excuse to treat people poorly, and I don't really have to explain it very much. It's just like, just because you are struggling doesn't mean that's justification to treat people wrong. Same thing when someone has a bad day and they take it out on you. That's wrong, and they should apologize. So I just kind of wanted to make that clear, just because sometimes I feel like it might not be. And same thing with like, I don't feel like mental health is an excuse to make bad decisions. So let me give an example. I feel like a lot of times in talks about mental health, they say like, if it causes you stress and anxiety and all these bad feelings, cut it out of your life, don't do it, prioritize yourself and your mental health and all that stuff. And I don't think they take it, I mean, maybe they do take it very literal, but for me, I think it's important to recognize that it shouldn't be literal. I get stressed and anxious when I go to the dentist. I hate going to it. It's not good for my mental health, but I have to do it anyways. And so I feel like something that's important with mental health is, it's not always about avoiding things that don't make you feel good. Sometimes it's like working through the stress and anxiety because it's something you have to do. Not everything that doesn't feel good you should avoid or prioritize your mental health over it. And that's even with like say you did something bad, like if you hurt someone's feelings, it might feel uncomfortable to apologize, and it might not be good for your mental health because you're stressed and anxious about it, but I still think it's something that we should strive to do. A lot of things in life are gonna hurt and be uncomfortable, but trying to navigate the difference between avoiding it and just not doing it or cutting it out versus working through it, and even if you feel like anxious or feel stressed or whatever, to still work through it. And I'm not even trying to say it in like, you have an anxiety disorder and you are anxious all the time, that you have to do X, Y, and Z. I don't want my words to be taken out of context. Like, just some things you have to do, like go to the dentist, and if that certain thing causes anxiety, we still gotta get our teeth cleaned, you know? Okay, so pause. I just wanted to quickly come on here and give a more applicable situation, because even though I stand by what I said about like needing to get your teeth cleaned, I don't think it was like an example that you can use in this situation. I feel like a more appropriate example would be maybe like getting criticism from somebody about how you hurt them or how you did something wrong, and just trying to zone them out and be like, you know what, I'm gonna stop right here, this isn't good for my mental health, and like not listen to the criticism. I feel like in some of the talks about like, oh, if it causes you stress, anxiety, cut it out, and the conversation is short because you don't like the way it makes you feel and it's stressing you out. And like, I feel like in an example like that, we should be like, okay, yes, it's uncomfortable, but it's gonna be uncomfortable no matter what, and we should still hear the person out when they're talking about maybe something that we did that wasn't the best decision. And so I just wanted to say that real quick. And I also wanted to say, like, life gets so hard where even getting out of bed is tough, and like I don't want anyone to think that like, oh, she's talking about going to the dentist and brushing your teeth, but like some people can't even get up this morning. Like I'm aware. Don't come for me. Anyways, roll the tape. So like another thing is just like, I feel like we like to throw the word toxic around, like he's toxic, she's toxic, my friends are toxic, my family's toxic, everyone's toxic. And sometimes I feel like in our mental health talks, it's like kind of making it seem like everyone's toxic and the world's against you. And I don't know if we ever sit and think that, like, no, maybe we're the toxic ones. I don't know. Like, I feel like have quotes and watch videos of people saying to cut toxic people out of our lives. But, like, what if we're the toxic ones? And, like, I don't want to, like, generalize or anything. But, like, especially, let's say, like, we're really going through it right now. Sometimes we treat people badly. And I think it's just very easy to blame other people and make it seem like they're the problem. But, like, we can also be the problem, too, sometimes, guys. I don't want this video to be like a pep talk for us to make excuses for things. I guess that's what I'm trying to say, because we can have poor mental health and we can have toxic people in our life, and that can very much be the situation. But sometimes we can have poor mental health, but maybe we're the ones being toxic to other people, or even we have good mental health and we're also being toxic to other people. I don't think that in any of these talks we ever also think of like the flip side of the coin, or like an accountability kind of way. And like I feel like both parts are like very important to talk about, because we can't just cut out everything in our life that we don't like, no matter how much we want to. And like that's a very nice thing to think about, but think, hey, what if what I'm doing is toxic? And I guess toxicity isn't really part of our mental health conversation, but I just wanted to throw that in there just because I feel like it's important to talk about, and sometimes it can be jumbled up, like, this isn't good for my mental health, you're toxic, so I'm gonna cut you out. And, you know, I kind of just want to like add another layer to this conversation, like, maybe we're the toxic one. Like, we're not always right. Now I wanted to talk about navigating mental health in relationships. And so I just wanted to start by saying, I'm not saying that if you go through mental health that you can't be in a relationship. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think that if you are single and really going through it right now, I think it's the best to try to stay single. I feel like a lot of times people can get into relationships when they're not mentally capable of having one, and it won't always turn out good, because being in a relationship is hard. Like, you're worrying about yourself, but then also you have to care about someone else and how the things you do affect them. And if you can't even like do that with yourself, or you're struggling to do the same thing with yourself, adding another person to it is just gonna be like really messy. I feel like a lot of things can come into play. Again, I'm talking very general. I don't know what anyone's issue is specifically, but like I feel like it can turn into relying on their love because you lack self-love, or putting all your happiness into one person, or even like acquiring unhealthy attachment styles. Like, there's so many things that I feel like can go wrong if we are struggling with our mental health but also trying to get a partner. And I think that it's best to, you know, try to be the best version of yourself and like make sure your mental health at least is stable. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else? Same type of mindset. You know, just because you're struggling with your mental health, I don't want to say you don't love yourself, but I just think it's important to evaluate where you are in this moment, because sometimes people cannot get validation within themselves, so then they seek it in other places, and it's just not healthy. You shouldn't put all your love, all your emotion, all your happiness, all your, I want to even say baggage onto one person, because a lot of times people will, I don't know what the phrase is, but like you're just dumping all your trauma onto one person, and sometimes it's a lot for one person to have and carry. That goes beyond like romantic relationships. Also another reason why I advocate for therapy, but also recognizing that it's not accessible for everybody. So I don't have all the answers. This is just my thoughts. I have my notes written down, but also I'm kind of just speaking from the heart right now. And there's not one right answer or wrong answer. And like, I feel like sometimes, especially when you put yourself out there on the internet, you can make a lot of people mad. And like, I'm sorry if I do, but like, it's part of the conversation. And like, I don't want anyone to take this personal, because just know I don't know you. So if you're taking this personal, that's on you, not me. Anyways, and so for platonic relationships, I feel like it's really important to communicate and then put up boundaries. So communicate with your struggles. I feel like for so long, even sometimes now, I want to avoid the real reason why I couldn't do something instead of just being honest. Like, go back to my vlog where I was talking about friendships and anxiety and whatever. Like, I feel like it's just because we've been so conditioned to be good all the time. Like, if someone asks how you are, you have to say, oh, I'm good. And you're not supposed to show any weakness or vulnerability. But like, honestly, if someone just were to say, hey, I don't feel like hanging out right now because I'm having a bad mental health day and I'd rather spend that time with myself, like, I wouldn't question it. I want to be like, lame. So I don't know why we feel a little bit hesitant to say that with our friends. I don't think you should hold everything in. I think it's good to mention to people that if you're struggling with X, Y, and Z, that's the reason why you can't hang out, or I'm flaky. If I don't text often, then maybe this is why. Side note, like, a lot of times when like people will not be texting a lot, not be returning your calls, not doing all these things because they're just kind of going through it. And a lot of times we like to think that it's like personal and that everything is about us and that they just have a vendetta against you. But maybe they could. I'm not saying they don't. But like, sometimes it's not about you. And sometimes people are just going through it. And so I don't think it's bad to just let people know, hey, I might not be always responsive because right now I'm trying to work on myself. Point blank, period. I don't know if any of this relates or resonates to any of you, but this is something that I actually am really happy I talked about. I was so close to making a whole different girl chat video, but I'm kind of glad I got that out of my chest. I just think mental health is like so complex. And so I could talk about this so much. I will put resources in the description box, like my definitions of mental health and resources and stuff in the description box if you are interested. I would love to know your thoughts on all of this. I just also want to reiterate again how this is not a one size fits all. I'm not talking about every single person who struggles with mental health. I am not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm not trying to do anything besides just talk and share my thoughts. And I kind of try to stay away from the very serious side of mental health and like the severe like depression parts and you know, the hard stuff. Like, I wanted to make this as general and somewhat lighthearted as possible, but I know that like there are very dark parts of mental health, so I don't want to minimize that if anyone's going through that. That's just what I wanted to talk about. Like I said in the beginning, I like to make girl chat videos, so I will put the playlist in the description box below. If you're interested, you can watch my last one, which is all about friendships. And I also have one about beauty standards and body hair and a little bit of relationships, trauma, the whole shebang. So if you're interested in girl chats, make sure you watch my other ones. And if you've seen all of them, then go ahead and comment down below what kind of other girl chats you would be interested in watching. But other than that, I think I'm going to go. If you made it this far, type in the word vulnerability. Type that in just so I know that you made it to the end of the video. But other than that, I'll see you guys later. And yeah, bye.